Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadster.com. The AutoLeadster platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadster is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing today. So today we have a very special guest, Justin Harmon. Justin, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you.
We are excited. So before we jump into all the amazing content that you're going to bring to us, let me give you a quick intro here, and your bio is pretty impressive. So I'll try and keep it short, but to the point. Justin is the marketing director for the Eide Automotive group based in Bismarck, North Dakota. He oversees the marketing of 4 stores and works with multiple vendors, holding them very much accountable for top performance, which we'll talk about. One of Justin's specialties is using video for monthly offers, community participation, and showing off the dealership culture. We'll also discuss that. Justin, born and raised in North Dakota, also enjoys the outdoors, so he trains for long-distance endurance sports, including Ironman triathlons, which is insane. And he also works part-time as a spin instructor, so that's awesome. I'm a fellow spinner, so we need to talk about that towards the end of the podcast as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. And lastly, Justin is here today to tell us that if you train yourself today, it will lead to greater success tomorrow. Those are his words. We'll talk about that as well. Justin, so thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Between marketing, 4 stores, spinning, triathlons, Ironman, thank you.
Yeah, easy to fit you in, so no problem.
Awesome. Well, there's so much we want to unpack, but before we even get into some of the digital stuff that I want to talk about, and specifically the marketing stuff that you're doing at the dealerships, how did you get into auto? Tell us a little bit about your personal story.
So it's actually kind of funny. So before I started working for Eide, I had a marketing company, and so I had a business partner, and we were, specializing in digital marketing primarily, and doing some video content marketing as well. And I started talking to Jesse Peterson, our dealer principal at Eide, about offering our services to the Eide Ford and Eide Chrysler at the time. And as time progressed, he gracefully declined our services.
But
one meeting I know, yeah. One meeting I had with him, he just said this comment, and he said, I just wish I could hire someone to do this marketing stuff for me. And that comment just sunk in my head, just like concrete. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And then I just started to think, it seemed like a really good company. Wouldn't be what if I decided to work for them or work with them? And I was kind of at that crossroads for myself professionally of whether I wanted to continue on with the marketing company or just sell my shares of the company and move on and do something else. And so I spent some time just doing some soul searching, talked to my old business partner, and I just said to him, I think it's time for me to move on. And then so we worked out my buyout agreements, and then no longer an entrepreneur and business person. And so just basically looking for a job. So I typed up my resume and all that sort of stuff, and I just popped into Eide Chrysler where Jesse was at. And I was lucky enough he's such a busy man, and I was lucky enough to just catch him on the main floor. And I just asked him, Jesse, could I have a few minutes of your time? And he said, yeah, sure, what's up? And I just explained to him that I'm in the process of selling out of my shares of my old marketing company. And I reminded him of his comments a couple of weeks prior that he was looking to hire someone to do all this marketing stuff for him. And I just asked him, I'd like the opportunity to come work with you as your marketing manager. And so we spoke in his office a few minutes later, gave him my resume, and then had an interview. And during the interview, it was with him and Lamont. He was one of the other dealer principals. And during my interview, I actually produced a short video, kind of showing off my capabilities and all this sort of stuff.
I love that.
So I had my laptop prepped and all this, and, just did that. And I just wanted to it's kind of hard to explain what you can do, but if you can actually show it on screen and on camera, that just kind of makes it more real. And I noticed Jesse, he just had this big smile on his face, and because I think he knew right away that there was something there. And so he called me a few days later and offered me a position, and it's been to the races ever since,
Wow.
and probably the most interesting thing about the position was what I initially thought I would be doing day one as the marketing director to what I'm doing now is completely just out the window. The position's grown and evolved and changed to something much more technical and much more elaborate, much more detailed than I ever possibly could imagine. And it's been a really fun, engaging and wonderful journey. And I feel very fortunate to be working for such a great company.
That's awesome. I love that story because also that shows, first of all, remember what people say, because if you hadn't remembered that and you hadn't used that, you would have just maybe not even paid attention. And it's interesting. I just got off topic a bit, but I just got, I got a sales email from a software company that's trying to sell to Automotive, and we did a demo with them a year ago. And in the email where they said, let's revisit this, they took a line from the demo and said, your words, not mine. And it was like our biggest pain point at the time. And it was so powerful. So I kind of feel like that goes along the same lines of like, just you being really creative in your outreach and making sure that you're also paying attention and listening. So that's wonderful.
Absolutely. One of the things that I did several years ago was I was part of a Toastmasters group. And so what that is, it's a local group that meets on a weekly basis, and you're assigned a certain number of speeches. And each speech has a certain criteria and profile that you have to fulfill. The first speech is just talking about yourself for 2 to 3 minutes. So anyone can pretty much talk about themselves, but as each speech progresses, they become more elaborate and more difficult. But one thing I learned was, it does enhance your public speaking skills or presentation skills, but one of the most important things I think is it teaches you to be a better listener, because while you're not speaking, you're listening to the other Toastmasters, and you have to evaluate their speeches. You have to count their ums and ahs. If they mispronounce something, you have to make notes of that. So it makes you very, very attentive as a listener. And I think that's one thing that's kind of missing sort of in the business community is, while you're trying to explain something, people will suddenly interrupt you with what they think is the answer, but you're not finishing what you're explaining or what you're trying to say what the problem is. And that's one thing I've noticed with, some professionals in the business community. If I'm trying to explain what the problem is, they'll interrupt me with an answer. And sometimes it is the right answer, but sometimes it's not, and they go completely off track.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I was actually just talking about this in, I don't know if you're familiar with Clubhouse. It's a new, I don't think it's actually that new, but it's pretty new in automotive. I feel like it took off the last couple of months. And I spend way too much time in there, and I shouldn't. But there's this once a week room it's a recurring room, and I like participating in it because it's a women in automotive room. And they always have interesting topics about how, we can make women stronger in automotive. And last week they spoke about listening. Like, it was how do you find the balance between speaking up and not being scared and not having imposter syndrome versus actually listening. And often we kind of came to the conclusion that the more you listen, the more insightful you are, and probably the better solutions you'll be able to bring, because you actually have the full picture. So I definitely agree with that. But the other thing that you did that's interesting in this interview process was that you showed your skill right there. So it wasn't just question and answer, but you were like, hey, let me show you what I can actually do. And you created a video on spot. So that's amazing. And I know that video, we spoke about this a little bit in your bio, is something that you're passionate about, and you've created some very funny videos for Eide, but also videos that show the really special culture there. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm also interested in what the reach is like for your client base and your customers, and how that's played a role in your strategy.
So, kind of one of the videos in particular was the 60-second blooper reel. And so that is actually one of my favorite videos.
I'm going to link that up here in the show notes too, so people can see it.
One thing I really enjoy about Jesse Peterson, our dealer principal, is like me, he has a very good self-deprecating sense of humor. So he's not afraid to make fun of himself.
The best way, the only way.
Yeah, and I really try not to take myself too seriously. I like making jokes about myself and whatnot. And but the funny story about that video is, I was just playing around with that one. I had all these extra cuts, and I was just piecemealing it together. And at the time, we were kind of brainstorming a Super Bowl ad, for that particular year. And I had some ideas, and I was just using this blooper reel as just a distraction, just to cleanse my brain, and I like doing fun stuff, just to kind of refresh my brain, so I come up with a better idea. And so I'm just playing around with it, and I got it 99% done. And then I show it to Jesse, and he's just, wow, that's awesome. That's the Super Bowl ad. And I just said, really? He liked it so much that ended up turning to be our Super Bowl ad for that particular year. And it just fit really well. And and showing all the employees, screw up during each take and all that sort of stuff, and just mixing it together to make something really funny is one of my favorite productions. And then let's see, I'm trying to think which other video I sent you.
It was about culture, actually. It was just
culture, yeah,
which was great.
Yeah, so with that one, we filmed on a Sunday when the dealership is closed. I didn't want to have people walking back and forth and being a distraction. With that particular one, I just asked a bunch of open-ended questions, about the history of the dealership, what it's like to work there. And I'm a really big fan of that interview style format, because it just allows the person I'm filming at the time just to speak off the cuff. And one thing I like to do when I do that type of format is I'll email the person I'm interviewing, just a few of the questions, not all of them, just so that they can start thinking about some of their answers. And then during the interview process, you can kind of pick out a lot of really good hidden gems out there, and you learn about the history of the company in a much more detailed manner, and most importantly, I feel in a much story-driven manner. I think as people, we have a tendency to remember stories much better, as opposed to sell, price. And by being able to share those stories about the Eide culture and how we like to do business, I think it resonates with our audience much more effectively.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think finding the right narrative too is one of the biggest struggles for companies today, because it's like so the market's so saturated. So your story is what's going to define you. And I completely agree. So finding that narrative and sticking to it and making it exciting is exactly what we need. So I think that video actually does a great job, and you could tell that the culture is really good at the dealership, and people enjoy working there, and you take care of your employees, which I think is the most important. So it is important for consumers to see that. And as we talk about consumers, we're in this kind of, I wouldn't say it's post-COVID yet, but we're kind of getting there maybe. I feel like I've had way more human interaction in the past month than I've had in the past 2 years, or a year and a half. So, but now that we're coming out of it, I think we're learning a lot about, okay, there were the consumer trends that happened during COVID, which is kind of the the hyper form of what would happen if we were all at home. And now it's transforming into the real way that consumers are going to come out of COVID and expect to shop, whether that's for a home, car, shoes. Those are a little bit different, obviously, but there's definitely changes in every single market. So I know Eide is focusing a lot on transforming to fit these new consumer trends. Can you share with us a little bit about what you've been doing and what's been helpful? And then also even what the consumer trends are in North Dakota, because I know every market and within the United States is, of course, different.
Sure. Last year when COVID was kicking into gear, we worked very diligently about trying to make the shopping process for a vehicle as streamlined as possible. And we do that very, very well if the customer shows up to the store. But during COVID, there was a lot of hesitancy for our customers to show up at the store. And so we worked out processes where we could facilitate a majority of the car deal online or through email communication. And it forced us to evolve a lot faster than what we initially planned, because we knew this day was coming where we would have to harness the power of online retail tools and more online forums and doing as much as we possibly can through the digital landscape to facilitate that car deal. And with what was going on last year, that just put the gas down on that and forced us as managers and as an organization to do those things much more quickly. And we were able to do that. And I think the other thing that we learned is to not underestimate the intelligence of the customer. When a customer is shopping for a vehicle, they pretty much know what it is they're looking for. Searching on your smartphone or just going on your computer, you can find anything that you want out there. And as shoppers, whether we're shopping on Amazon or any automotive website, we have a pretty strong idea of what it is we're looking for at that particular time. And so when we're asking our customers to fill out a credit application or go through the buying process with a digital retailing tool, they understand that and they're willing to do that. They're willing to go through that work. And then it's just a matter of, completing those remaining steps to facilitate that car deal. And the response has been very, very positive for our customers. We have had several customers where they've done pretty much the entire car deal online. And then it's just a matter of just taking that vehicle that they're shopping for a test drive, just to make sure it's exactly what it is that they want. And then, they complete the paperwork and then they're out the door. And the trend is people will want that. I remember when I was a kid being at the car dealership with my parents for hours and hours. And I just remember, God, this is so boring.
Yeah.
Just sitting there, just waiting, can we go? Can we go? It's not like that anymore. People's time is valuable. We need to get these things done in a timely fashion. And that's one thing that we really strive to. Our motto, our tagline is time saving, hassle-free, fair price. We really genuinely want to save people's time during the car buying process because everybody's busy, and not too many people will want to spend several hours at the car dealership. I know I'm not one of them. I work at one.
No, me neither. But do you feel like the digital retail platform, at least of that part of the technology that you're investing in, do you feel like it's there to help consumers feel good about coming in with less time at the deal, knowing that it will be less time at the dealership? Or do you feel like it's, okay, consumers are interested in this because they actually want end-to-end, transaction for car buying?
I think it's both. I think customers, there's certain customers that just want to complete the entire process online. And then you have certain customers where they just want to complete part of the process online, and then they want to finalize everything at the store. It's kind of a mixed bag. If I had to say, I would say the younger car buyer is more inclined to complete the entire process online. And with your middle-aged to older car buyer, they'll complete the car buying process partially. But you never know. I mean, you may have that person that's 50, 60 years old, and they just do everything online, and then it's just a matter of okay, I'm here to pick up my truck. And it's that simple.
Wow. I don't know if even though I fit into that category, I don't think I can ever be that. I gotta come in, I gotta speak to the guy or the woman, I gotta drive the car.
Yep.
But
I'm the same way. I'd have a really tough time just buying a vehicle just without having to take a look at it or take it on a test drive. But there are people out there where they feel comfortable and confident with buying a vehicle without even taking it for a spin. And if that's what they want to do, we're here to facilitate that for them.
Yeah, and there's of course the people who just renew their lease to the next model. So my mother, for example, she's always going to get the Subaru Forester. I think that's what she drives, and she's just going to every 3 years get the next. She doesn't have to test drive it. That's all she wants. She's like it's the easiest thing in the world. So for that too, I think having that interaction online is really crucial because there's a fair amount that probably do that, and so it's just convenient for them.
Oh, absolutely, and we have several customers that are like that, especially the lease customers. They know the vehicle in and out. They drive it, they understand it, they understand the technology, and they so sometimes they know the ins and outs more than some of our salespeople.
Well, and don't underestimate the intelligence of the customer.
Absolutely. I mean, there's just so many resources that people can go to research vehicles, and so when they show up to the store to renew their lease, they know what they want, and it's and the thing is, we have to make it easy for them, because if we don't, they're going to move on to someone else and take their business elsewhere, and obviously we don't want that.
Yeah, of course. So that's great. So digital retailing is a big part of that. What else are you doing? Anything else that helps kind of just streamline your messaging, makes it easy for you to turn things on and off? I think that's really important. We learned that in COVID. The dealers that were doing everything manually. It was just, they were so behind. 2-3 months went by and they were still saying, come buy our car, come in, versus the dealers that were able to streamline messaging without forgetting, a channel. Maybe on Bing it was running like this and on Google it was running like this. But I think there's something about using tech-driven marketing, and obviously I'm a big proponent of this, but in general, I do think there's something about having, plug-and-play technology for dealers to be able to, target and convert consumers is also part of the process. And it's not just having that, e-commerce set up on the site.
Well, I think one of the best things dealers can have, for that particular foundation of making it easy to find what you're looking for, is just having a strong website. So all of our Eide stores, we work with a third-party website vendor, and we spend a lot of time with the aesthetics of our website, making sure it's easy to navigate, find what you're looking for, because most car buyers, they know what it is they're looking for. If a customer is looking for a Ford F-150, they know whether it's new or used. They have in their minds what it is that they want. And so that whole customer path to looking for what you want and finding it, and then submitting that lead form. It's just that customer flow to make things as easy as possible. And then in terms of automation, with what Auto Lead Star can do, here's a good plug for your company, is it really does dial in some of the targeting, whether it's geographically or certain profile that we're targeting, whether it's SUV or truck customers. It does seem, the AI seems to be very, very intelligent and strong. And so we started working with Auto Lead Star at the beginning of 2021 here. And before that, we worked with another paid search provider, and they were getting results for us. But I always felt like there was just something better. And then our dealer principal, Jesse Peterson, mentioned Auto Lead Star to me from another dealer in his 20 group. And so researched the company, had a few calls with you guys. And like I said before we went live, whenever I work with a new vendor, I always get nervous because you never know what you're going to get sometimes. And January, when January started, 2021, I could just see the results mid-month. And I was just very, very impressed with the platform, just from that short 15-day window, looking at the data. And that's one thing that we do as a company, is we really look at the data, see the amount of leads that are coming in from all of our marketing vendors, what type of lead form, conversion rates, sales rates. We're a very data-driven company, because we want to learn, and we want to see how our marketing dollars are being spent and how effective those marketing dollars are. And so when I am seeing these results, fast forward to today, it's just been very, very impressive with what the platform can do. And one thing Guy mentioned was, as the system learns, it's going to become more and more effective, and it surely has. And it's worked very, very well for our stores, and I'm excited to see what else is in store for the future.
That's great. Yeah, I think Auto Lead Star or not, and I love that we have a plug here for Auto Lead Star, but automation and tech-driven marketing, I know the industry is going to go in that direction. And so I do think it's important for dealers to consider that, because the AI can just work at much better speed than a human, and you have that competitive edge once you invest in something like that. This has been an amazing conversation. Before we sign off, I do want to talk a little bit about your athletic side, because we have quite the athlete here on the Inside Auto podcast today. Tell us a little bit about how you got into training. Specifically, I'd love to know about the Ironman and triathlons. I am an avid spinner, so I'm always open to talking about spinning as well, but I know a lot less about training for Ironman. So tell us a little bit about that and how you keep yourself active, and then we can make sure that our listeners tune in and subscribe before we sign off. Sure.
So how I got into triathlon, my wife is actually a triathlete, and she did triathlon when we were dating. And at the time I was just lifting weights and occasionally running. And I just thought, you're going to do that on Saturday? Really?
That would be my reaction.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like fun. And then, years passed by, and then I just started doing more cardio and all that sort of stuff. My wife got me into spin class. And then I had just sick twist of fate. I met my triathlon coach, a gentleman by the name of Arnie Street, at one of our local bike shops. And he's my wife and I's triathlon coach. And so he kind of took me under his wing to help train me for my very first triathlon, which was the Bismarck Triathlon, which is just a really fun local race. It was a 500-meter swim, a 20-mile bike ride, and a 6-mile run, something like that. And I see your eyes light up.
Yeah.
So it was a short, fun race, and so I just got bit by the bug after that first race. I just had such a great time, and the triathlon community in Bismarck, Mandan here is very, very strong. We have just some amazing local inspiring athletes that are super supportive. And the thing I really enjoy about triathlon is if it's a Saturday morning and you have to do a 5-hour bicycle ride, you have to have a positive attitude about it. You have to be, let's do it. Let's get going. There's very little room for negativity or a bad attitude, when you do these types of endurance sports. And so the people that you're around are always very upbeat, very positive. And then that first year, I got my first race under my belt. My wife and I did another race in Minnesota, and just a short distance one. And then, so every year, except last year because of COVID, there's the Ironman World Championships on the big island of Kona, Hawaii. And so I'm sitting on the couch, eating pizza, drinking beer, watching the race, all these healthy things, right?
Of course. But if you
and I'm
5-hour bike rides, you can eat as much pizza as you want.
Yeah. so I'm just sitting there, and I'm just amazed by the athleticism, of all these people, the pros. And the neat thing about that particular race is you have the pros racing, male and female, and then you have amateur athletes like myself that qualify for the Kona race, and they're able to race alongside, the professionals. And I was just blown away by, people just going for it, and doing it. And then I'm just sitting there, and I just say to my wife, Kylie, what do you think about doing an Ironman? And she says, really?
Oh my gosh.
And so we met with Arnie, our coach, and just told him, hey, we're interested in doing an Ironman race, full triathlon Ironman race. And for those that don't know the distances, it's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then a 26.2 mile run, all in one day. And so you get your swim, you get your bike, and then you get to run a marathon afterwards. But you get snacks during the way. So that's what I tell myself. So Arnie, he worked with us, drafted a training plan for us to follow, and it's just building up that endurance, building up that fitness, and then it's race day. And
Wow.
I distinctly remember on race day, it was Ironman Madison. It's in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful race. So you have some time before you line up to start the day. And so I was just sitting down, and I just thought to myself, I just asked myself the question, did I do everything I could to prepare for this race? And the answer was yes. And I just felt this sudden calm of, you're gonna do it today. Today is gonna be a good day, and you just break it up in sections. You start your swim, try not to drown, get out of the water, hop on the bike, take your nutrition, drink plenty of fluids. And then it gets to a point where when you're on the bike, where around that 80 mile mark, where it's like, I can't wait to get off this bike so I can run the marathon.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm sure that's what everyone's thinking.
You're feeling some part of pain, and you want to supplement it with something else.
Oh,
and then you get off the bike, and your legs are like jello, and then you just start your run. And while you're running with all these other athletes, I had the pleasure of running with this gentleman that was actually a guide for a blind athlete. So they were doing the entire race together. So this it was such a terrific story. And as I was running with them, the guy asked me, the blind gentleman asked me, hey, did you pass another blind guy? And I said, yeah. And then the blind athlete said, good, we're beating them.
Love that.
So it was just, it was such a fun experience just to see so many different people. I mean, so many short people, tall people, thin, so many different body types. There are these athletes out there that you would think that would never be doing such a physical feat, but they're out there doing it. And a lot of them are doing it just really well too. And I just feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to experience something like that, because it really, truly is life-changing.
And I think a really great way to end this podcast is what you said about, did I do everything I could to prepare for this? And that's such a good life lesson, because I feel like often we're so hard on ourselves, or we prepare and it doesn't go exactly as planned. At the end of the day, if you put in your all and you have that positive attitude, that helps you push forward. So I appreciate that, and I'll take that with me for the rest of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and your content. It's awesome getting to know you from an auto perspective, from an athlete perspective. It's just amazing what you're able to accomplish. So thanks for joining us today. And for our listeners, if you liked this episode, please tune in Inside Auto Podcast, insideautopodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Justin.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.